Imagine, if you will, the year 1666. It was a time of great intrigue, superstition, and turmoil. The number 666, a trio of digits steeped in biblical lore and often associated with the devil, had many on edge. In fact, the very mention of the year was enough to send shivers down the spines of the deeply religious. Meanwhile, the socio-political climate was a powder keg waiting to explode. Tensions were high and the city of London was a tinderbox, both figuratively and literally. Living conditions were far from ideal, with overcrowding and poor sanitation being the order of the day. Many believe these conditions played a significant role in creating the perfect environment for the impending disaster. Add to this a long, dry summer and the stage was set for catastrophe. So, with the stage set, let's dive into the events that unfolded during that fateful year. On the early morning of September 2nd, 1666, in a small bakery on Pudding Lane, a spark ignited. A seemingly insignificant ember, left to smolder in the oven of Thomas Farriner's bakery, was about to set the stage for one of history's most notorious urban disasters. As the city of London slumbered, the tiny flame grew, feeding on the dry timber of the bakery and the adjoining houses. The fire, like a beast awoken from its sleep, roared into the quiet night, its orange-red tongues licking the sky, casting an eerie glow over the sleeping city. The initial reactions to the fire were woefully inadequate. The watchman on duty, upon seeing the growing conflagration, raised the alarm. The clanging bells echoed through the narrow, winding streets, rousing the inhabitants from their sleep. The city's rudimentary firefighting methods, involving simple tools such as fire hooks and water squirts, proved futile against the raging inferno. Fueling the fire's rapid spread were the closely packed wooden houses, the prevalent building material of the time. London's narrow streets and alleyways acted as wind tunnels, fanning the flames and aiding their relentless progression. To add to the catastrophe, the city had been experiencing an unusually dry summer, turning the timber-built city into a veritable tinderbox. Attempts to create fire breaks by demolishing buildings in the fire's path were slow and ineffective. The Lord Mayor, Sir Thomas Bloodworth, initially hesitated to give the necessary orders, fearing the cost of compensation. His delay, though brief, had catastrophic consequences. The fire, unhindered and uncontrolled, continued to spread. It devoured streets, houses, and even stone churches, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. The small spark in a bakery on Pudding Lane had ignited a firestorm that would forever change the face of London, and so the city found itself in the grip of an uncontrollable inferno. By now, the fire had grown into a monstrous entity, a colossal beast that roared and hissed, consuming everything in its path. The once vibrant city of London was now a terrifying canvas of flames, painting a picture of despair and chaos. The heart of the city was beating with an infernal rhythm, as the fire, in its cruel dance, devoured churches, homes, warehouses, and even the mighty stone walls of the Tower of London, proving that no edifice was invincible against its fiery wrath. The flames ascended towards the heavens, creating a hellish skyline that could be seen miles away. Desperate cries echoed through the smoke-filled air as Londoners, once proud and sturdy, were rendered helpless in the face of this fiery titan. The once bustling streets were now avenues of panic, as people scrambled to save their loved ones and whatever possessions they could carry. The River Thames, which had once been the city's lifeline, now became its refuge, as countless souls sought shelter in its cool embrace. Yet, in this chaos, the resilience of the human spirit shone through. Men, women, and children rallied together, forming human chains to pass buckets of water from the river in a desperate attempt to quell the fire's insatiable appetite. But each bucket of water seemed like a drop in the ocean, as the fire continued to rage, laughing in the face of their futile efforts. As the city succumbed to the fire, a stark realization dawned upon its inhabitants. This was not just a fire, it was a cataclysm, a force of nature that was reshaping their world, obliterating the old and paving the way for the new. In its wake, the fire left behind a city that was unrecognizable, a ghost of its former self. The once bustling city had been reduced to mere ashes, but from these ashes, London would rise again, forever marked by the year of the Great Fire, the year that London burned to the ground. When the flames finally died down on the 6th of September, the city of London was unrecognizable. The Great Fire had raged for 4 days and nights, consuming over 13,000 houses, 87 churches, and numerous iconic structures like the Royal Exchange and St. Paul's Cathedral. The heart of the city lay in ruins, smoldering ashes where bustling streets once stood. The immediate aftermath was a scene of desolation, a ghost town echoing with the shock and grief of its survivors. The fire had razed a vast area, from the Tower of London in the east to the Temple Church in the west. An estimated 70,000 of the city's 80,000 inhabitants found themselves homeless. The economic cost was enormous, estimated at £10 million, a colossal sum in the 17th century. Yet, amid the devastation, the spirit of London remained unbroken. The city set about rebuilding itself, an effort that would span several decades. The fire had effectively cleared the medieval cityscape, making way for a more modern urban design. The narrow, winding streets and overhanging timber houses were replaced with wider avenues and buildings made of brick and stone. This was a conscious decision to prevent a similar disaster in the future. Architects and city planners saw an opportunity in the catastrophe. Christopher Wren, a renowned architect of the time, played a key role in the reconstruction. His designs, including the new St. Paul's Cathedral, would come to define the London skyline. The rebuilding of London was not just a physical process, but a symbolic one. It was a testament to the city's resilience, its ability to rise from the ashes and forge ahead, stronger than before. The Great Fire of 1666 marked the end of an era, but it also heralded the birth of a new London, a city that was better planned, more resistant to fire, and ready to face the future. Out of the ashes, a new London began to rise. But the fires of 1666 left more than just physical scars. This catastrophic event also kindled the flames of superstition and fear, fueled by the ominous presence of the number 666 in the year of the fire. Known as the Devil's Number or the Number of the Beast, 666 has long been associated with evil and the occult in various cultures and religions. In the Christian tradition, the Book of Revelation in the New Testament mentions 666 as the number of the beast, often interpreted as a symbol of Satan or the Antichrist. The year of the Great Fire, 1666, with its conspicuous 666, was seen by many as a sign from the heavens, a divine warning or even a punishment. Indeed, the people of the time were no strangers to the supernatural. The world was a place of miracles and mysteries, of angels and demons. In this context, the Great Fire, with its terrifying scale and destructive power, seemed to many a clear manifestation of the devil's work. Some theorists even suggested that the fire was no accident, but a deliberate act of demonic intervention, a belief that only added to the fear and paranoia in the aftermath of the disaster. However, it's important to remember that these theories, while fascinating, are mostly based on superstition and speculation. The true causes of the Great Fire, as we know, were far more mundane: a small spark, a strong wind, and a city built like a tinderbox. Yet the psychological impact of these beliefs was profound. They reminded people of their vulnerability, their mortality, and the ever-present threat of unseen forces. Such fears and superstitions, while largely dismissed today, were a significant part of the lived experience of people in the 17th century. Whether the work of chance or something more sinister, the Great Fire of London remains one of history's most devastating disasters.